Spizzy. My middle name is Sprezzatura, and Sprezzatura is the name for that was used by the Italians for, and it was a word that I think Shakespeare very much loved. I don't know if you ever used the word, but Sprezzatura is when you are able to create an illusion that is so real that you think it is the real thing, but it's not. It's fake. It's magic. So first of all, I didn't say one thing about applause, very briefly. The anecdote about Judy Garland. Have you ever watched Judy Garland talking? Can you imagine about Marlene Dietrich? Now, have you ever seen Judy Garland on Johnny Carson? You must pull it up on YouTube. And some of them, she's so funny. She's so witty. She's so smart. She's so dark. Like she's just all the stuff you think would make a great artist. And she says that I was with Marlena the other night. Like how many of us can say that? But I was with Marlena when she was playing us her records. And she put on a record, and she said, it was all applause. And now and then she would go, that's Berlin. That's Frankfurt. I thought that was very funny. Okay, that's that. And then I'm going to give up, it's a teeny bit of a downer after, I should have done the downer first and the upper. Well, it's a pet peeve. So I was at this conference, this sort of a Shakespearean conference, and there was a manager who I know who I realized when he went on to do his presentation that he was probably skinnier, and then I thought, well, maybe he's ill. So then, and I felt very sad. And so then I went out into the patio, and I happened to sit down with him and someone else, and I don't know this guy very well, so keeping myself forward, I'm kind of a stranger to this guy. I mean, I'm not stranger, but we're not great friends. But I sat down with him to have a chat with him, and there's another woman there, and then someone comes up to him and goes, we're praying for you, Jack. Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about virtue signaling, because I want to tell you that when, you get what I'm saying? Because when I get the thing, when they say, Spizzy, you're dying of the liver, whatever the cancer is, it's so horrible, there's so many. When he says, you're dying of that, Spizzy, and I tell you, and then you come up to me, you know, in a public place with strangers and whisper in my, not whisper, but say in my ear in front of people, we're praying for you, Spizzy. I don't do that. I don't want you to do that. Because it's not, if you were private at home, and you want to pray for me, and I'm not so much into praying, but if you're going to, not at least in the traditional way, I pray in my own way. You may wonder how that is. But the thing is, I do get down on my knees. But the thing is that it's important to note that, you know, that's virtue signaling, because it was only for the people around to hear that they are praying, that they pray. No, it's more like, that they pray. Like, I pray, you give me an award. And there's so much virtue signaling these days. There's so many people who are saying, I'm a good person, which is related to what I was talking about with David. So now I'm going to introduce you to someone who I have a bit more of a history with. We were never lovers. I will say that. Yeah. But I have a bit more of a history with, because I realized that the Dora that you won was for a play that you did at Buddies in Bad Times Theater. You probably don't even remember, but this person. But, and I don't even remember, you have to remind me what the play was. But at any rate, because I'm just very old. It's not because I don't value your performance. It's because I'm very old and I can't remember a thing. But at any rate, and she's a wonderful lady, so enormously talented. You've seen her in movies, and she's going to do a little something for you before I talk to her. Will you please welcome Allegra Fulton?
Okay. Hello. Hello. Hey. I'm going to read from a play written by Peter Hinton Davis, and it's called The Sylvia Effect. I'm going to read 2 excerpts, and in both of them, I am the daughter. Excerpt 1, in the beginning. She dies at the end. Oh, maybe I should have given you a content warning, but I suspect you already knew that. It seems that whenever you say the name Sylvia Plath, the first thing people think of is, well, suicide. They begin with her death and work backwards from there. I don't say committed, like a sin or a crime. It's how she died. And like cancer, it wasn't her fault. But this play isn't about that. It isn't the story of how she died. Not really. It's the story, I hope, of how she lived as long as she did. And how we all survived her. In that sense, it's a biography, an account of someone's life written by someone else. And all biographers are thieves of the soul, Oscar Wilde said, Judases to their subjects. Truth can never quite escape betrayal. So, why did I do it? Any life is a thoroughly mixed collection of bad motives, good intentions, and crossed purposes. Plays about actual people make for great fiction. Plays about the dead are ghost stories. And because of the intimacy created by a play of this nature, one of its more unsettling side effects, the dark asteroid circling its brighter planet, is the way in which she appears to me and begins her persistent haunting. How will I conjure her? It is difficult a task as trying to invoke the scent of her perfume or precipitate a cloud. Family members are necessary but unreliable. Such sources often have something to conceal or protect. And sometimes it's the accidental or the inconsequential detail that reveals her. Truth makes no distinction about its hiding place. What you can't speak openly about, sometimes you hide in plain sight. In the end, this play is an assembled collection of partial truths, hopeful conjecture, informed intuition, educated guesses, and journals. The poet wrote thousands of pages in diary form, and like another thing Oscar Wilde said, a diary is simply a very young girl's record of her innermost thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. Everything she ever wrote has been published. And still, I am in the dark.
Sorry.
That has been my work. And who am I? Well, that is yours. I can only bring this play to you complete with missing parts. It remains for you to do what only she could have done, but I cannot.
Gotcha.
You must imagine the end.
Well,
Excerpt 3. The Sylvia Effect. There's an inherent violence to the creative act. The artist forces paint, marble, words, wet clay into a configuration that's exclusively their own. And it's violent. The poet and essayist A. Alvarez noted how the poems written in my mother's last months touched the roots of her own inner violence. Poetry of this order, that was his praise, is a murderous act. Maybe it's inevitable. If it bleeds, it leads. Right? But violence for what? And to whom? Is more problematic. Isn't that what kids say? There's certainly a violence in criticism, a violence in our assessment of the art which undermines its purpose. The poem as an act of social justice. Isn't that what they call it? Many schools now refuse to teach my mother's poems out of a fear of triggering They present a bad role model for girls. It romanticize or weaponize issues of class, race, gender, and mental health. There are some who believe there's a direct link between creativity and psychopathology. This and its effect on students, especially young female students, is what psychologist Dr. James Kaufman theorized as the Sylvia effect.
Yeah.
The prompt in Sylvia Plath's poems to commit self-harm. The Sylvia effect. Yes, and it's those same critics who, when praising a work of art or performance, love the expression, "Oh, it kills." Music, painting, plays, all the same. How many reviews can you read that say, this show or that show destroyed the reviewer? Oh, stand back, they say, oh, she decimates the language. In short, she kills it. Why don't people ever write, come close? She animates words. She brings them to life.
Thank you so much, Allegra. We're so lucky to have you here, both of you here. And now I have these two plays that I hear, and I love both of them, and I want to hear them on the one from David and the one from you. And I want to, now where's my chair? I wait to drag a chair away here. Is that I want to see both of these on stage now. Now, are you telling me is that you are going to play that daughter?
No, but I want to.
Oh yeah, you definitely should, that's for sure.
It's not on wait, that's because it's very clear.
And
You now have the plate of. Oh, wait, now one.
Do you want some
there's a plate of French fries,
Yeah.
yeah, that I will
Is it okay if
definitely
I
have
do
at
this?
least the one, and
It's a
then I'll
fancy
be
thing.
eating and burping,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be horrible.
Oh, I'm going into the world of Anna Delvey because of this one.
So, there we go. So yes, so to go, first of all, just to comment on this is so what you'll say, what Peter Hinton Davies, is that the name?
Yeah, because he married.
Yes, I know. Is saying is that he is that it's so important. This thing about the teaching. I mean, I was teaching Sarah Kane a play called 14. It's called some weird thing like she's British playwright.
48.
Yeah, 1460 Psychosis, whatever it's called. And I was teaching this play for years, and I would teach it with the students because it was about a young woman who commits suicide. And years ago, they used to just love it and be inspired by it, and then gradually they began to kind of object to it, or they began to say things like, the students began to at university, they began to say things like, they'd argue with me about it and say that I was forcing them to read something horrifying, whatever. It was like exactly what you're saying, like that we're no longer going to read something that's upsetting or it has to do with suicide, and instead of so I think that's incredibly important what you're saying there, what the play is saying there. So let's start with Allegra. So tell me, when you were working at Buddy, the play was called Extreme
Nocturnal Emissions.
Nocturnal Emissions. Was that the play by Marcy Rogers? Marcy Rogers.
Marcy.
No, she was this wonderful lesbian playwright who just appeared we kind of found her in a bush somewhere. That's where we found the lesbian playwrights. And she still comes up to me on Church Street. And she goes, hi. Oh yeah, she still does. She goes, hi. And so now, was that near the beginning of your career? So I'm going to eat your friends. You better have one.
No, you must eat them.
So, yeah.
No, I started very young.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a show called Butternut Square.
Wow.
When I was 3.5.
And when was that? Oh, we shouldn't ask. It was a long time ago.
I can say.
Okay.
Because I got my actor card when I was 5 years old. And I was on Butternut Square, which was the precursor to Mr. Dress Up. And my mother had been a child performer in Australia, and she was adamant she did not want me on this. But I overheard the phone call. Donald Himes had called, and he's the guy who did that on the Mr. Dress Up show all those years. He was on this thing, and he was teaching me eurythmics, and he went, I think Allegra would be great. I overheard the phone call, my mother saying, no, absolutely not. And I remember this so clearly. I screamed until she changed her mind.
So when we're talking about that initial impulse, the drive, that I want to be out there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a wonderful performer. I've seen you so many times, and it obviously we have this need to, because I always feel a little bit depleted, and that's why Spizzy exists. If I'm not somehow putting myself out there in front of people in some way. Now, is that the way it is for you?
So strange, because I was that child. Also, we had a basement, and
really?
Oh my goodness, we charged money. It was mostly horror, psychological horror, which I still love. I still love thrillers, right? But we're very sophisticated. Also, we. You know, I grew up in a very politically active family. There were meetings about get the peace in Israel and Gaza all the years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody shouting. We had found a vitrola in Natalie Warren's basement, and we learned all these songs. And we were 9, 10, and 11, and we learned. So we'd come up and say, are you guys taking a break anytime? Like, do you need coffee or anything? We've got a few little entertainments for your break. So we'd sing really precocious songs like, what's the time in Nicaragua? 8 o'clock. It's too late in Nicaragua. Late for what? For my date in Nicaragua. Oh, I'll meet her there some other time. For the men who travel to Honduras, there are ladies waiting to assure us that the weather never is too hot, except for what? What? The lady's got what? She got what she got is so unique. How you know? Monica Chica told me so.
Well, if this was the last reminds me, it reminds me very much of Elaine Stritch, because Elaine Stritch always tells that story about how she would be young and she'd be singing these really dirty songs, and she had no idea what she was singing, but she was very attracted to them, or into them. So because I will bring this up, and I feel like, maybe I should, but it's like, I perceive you as a Latina actress, as an Hispanic actress, and is that something which you perceive yourself as? Is it something where you, does it have to do with how you are cast, with the way you want to be cast, with the way you don't want to be cast? I'm very interested in that. I don't even know if you are, technically speaking, a Latina, or anyway, fill me in.
Wow, it's just so complicated.
I know.
And Bill Glasgow, who I loved in the end, but told me when I was very young, I would never be cast because he'd have to cast me as the maid. I was 18 or something. But it would be impossible because I was too exotic. And I would draw attention from the mean people in the play.
They look at you too much. Maybe because you're a good actress, we won't mention that.
Anyway, I think today we'd call that another thing. But anyway, I've had so much challenge about this because I have so many mixes in me, but mostly, I finally did my DNA. Here it goes.
Okay.
Scottish. Irish. English. Spanish. Norwegian. French. Welsh. Right. So if I can play all the canon in the Scottish writers, the Irish writers, the British writer, like all the English, British Isles I kind of got covered, French, Norwegian, I would die to do Ibsen. I'd be okay, I think. But, I'm not Latina. My grandmother was born on the way from Spain in Buenos Aires to Australia. So that was in 1907 when my Spanish great-grandparents left Spain. But, I learn and I speak a bunch of different languages, and
Congratulations.
And I did a play about Frida Kahlo. When
Frida Kahlo play, which
nobody knew her.
Yeah.
Nobody knew. Can you believe? It's so hard to believe now.
But I find it interesting, sorry to talk to you, is that you go through this, a lot of what happens now is people end up parsing through their heritage. That's why Spizzy's heritage is so mysterious and so complicated. It just comes from some pile of trash somewhere. But it's so true that we end up going, I have to figure out what exactly was my whatever heritage of whatever. Do you know what I mean? But then on top of that is going to have to do with how I am cast now the people say they're absolutely right that of course there's lots of people of color and there's lots of people of all sorts of visible who are visible. It's always about visibility, who people look at and say, well, I can't cast them because that would be too difficult, right? But so there's all sorts of something to be addressed, absolutely. But then it's become a very strange thing, and I'm not quite sure where we are with that. Now I will bring up in this context that I saw you in a play. I saw you in several plays. Well, first of all, I have to ask you about this. What character did you play in the Tennessee Williams that I saw at Hard House? What character did you play?
With this one.
Was David inside too?
Yeah.
Oh my God, I didn't know. Were you the lead? Were you the guy?
Oh, we've seen up an impression on you.
No, I'm so sorry. You leave an impression on me, but why? I think it's because I went there because of Allegra, because Allegra told me about it. But so you played the Richard Burton Parks, the Reverend, what's his name, Reverend?
The priest.
Whatever.
Yeah.
The defrocked. Shannon.
And I played Maxine Fogg. I was the eye of a gardener.
Right,
we had so much fun. What a great treat to be on stage with this animal. I loved it so much. Because, for me, always as an actor, the most exciting thing to do is play with somebody who's live, that you're really playing tennis. And you don't know where the ball is going. You're both good players. You have no idea where it's going to land. And they, in a fun way, kind of mess you up in an exciting way. Like, are you paying attention? We're here tonight. It's not the same as last night or the night or what happened in rehearsal. We're different people.
And you have hit on why the theater is so important. In case some people forgot, because I'm speaking for theater here, and I'm fine with film and everything. But what happens is you see a different play every night. If you come every night, if you're an actor, if you're a performer, you see that. I would always watch all of my own plays, and I would see that some nights they would be like, because the audience is part of it. They are bringing something to that. And I remember working once with Paul Bettis. God bless his soul. And Paul Bettis would do this thing. Oh, some of you remember him, and he would do this thing where when I catched him, he was a wonderful actor, but a very crazy man. And he would do this thing where he would, of course, change some things, always, in the way that you're saying, partially, where he would be doing something different. And sometimes he would go, in my view, as director, too far. And I would go like, Paul, you can't do that. Now you've left the field of what we're doing. You know what I mean? And he's saying, and we were talking about why he loved to act, and I realized that that's why I'm not essentially an actor, was that he loved that play. He loved the creativity of constantly changing what he was doing. But I have to talk to you about another play that I loved that you were in. It was my favorite play, and I've spoken to you about it, I think. No, you have to tell me the title, but it was Coal Mine. And it was that, what about where you was the religious lady? Now, what's that play called?
Beyond Riverside and Crazy.
Beyond Riverside and Crazy. It's a very interesting
Stephen Allegra's
fantastic play. I'm watching this play, it's a coal mine. This was, how long ago was that?
6 years ago?
6 years ago. I know that, and it was a turning point for me in a way. And here's a play about a black cop, right? So he was a central character. And what was interesting about it is, I honestly don't know whether they would produce this play today, because it was an ambivalent attitude. The cop was an ambiguous character.
They just did it on Broadway last year.
What do you mean they hadn't done it?
No.
Yeah.
Stephen Allegra just went from the cracks and the slivers of New York's theater, and then he did a play with 18 drag queens, I think.
Oh, that's for him. No wonder I responded to that.
And then Broadway discovered him, and they just did that play last year.
This play, it had the character. I'll talk first about the main character, and then I want to talk about Allegra's role. But what happened was that he was a black cop, and he was a morally ambiguous character. Okay, like what we were talking about. He was somebody who had, I guess, he had used anti-racism as a way to be to redeem himself or get money or go get ahead or whatever, right? So he was someone who had used anti-racism in a bad way, in the fight against racism in a bad way. You know what I mean? And so the suggestion that a black person would do something bad like that, but yes, it's a play about it. So what's interesting for me is not that I think that black people shouldn't are bad or shouldn't do, but that let me be honest, I'm sorry, and I'll stop talking about myself, but I'm a little bit drunk. But one of my problems, or one of Sky's problems, not mine, because this was Sky, but he's in Bad Times Theater, he's a different person. But one of his problems was people come to me and say, why do you hate gay men so much? Because I would be presenting images of gay men that were not always complimentary, right? So here I see this play, then Allegra comes in, oh my God. So she comes in order to preach to him about Catholicism, I guess.
Care of him religiously.
Yeah, and she was this religious lady. I thought, oh, that's fine. She's convincing me that she's just a religious lady, and she comes in, and then you end up blowing him.
No, I don't just blow him. I full on hump. We do it on the full out.
And by the way, this thing as a coal mine was very small back then. And the couch that they did it on was directly in front of me.
Oh, you were right there.
Oh yeah, and suddenly, you're sitting literally right there, and you're and this guy, and you're doing it, and the problem was you couldn't get it up, right, before he met you. Wasn't he impotent or something? I think something like that. And suddenly Allegra comes in, and they have the scene, and it was just, and I totally did not expect it. And again, about the theater, it was a moment where I went, I'm surprised, and it's so lovely to be surprised. I want to talk about one other thing with you, because I want to talk about other things, but I want to talk about we talked at one point about the fact that the way the Dora, which is the Doras are like the Tonys in Toronto, in case you're viewing this from New York City, the Doras recently have stopped having a women's categories. Is that not true? For Best Actress, they no longer have a Best Actress category.
Yeah, or Best Actor. And
the Best Actor, so it's all sort of all gender.
Yeah.
And please make it very clear that I'm all for the all gendered people and everything, but I kind of don't understand why they don't have a category for all gender people, and then let the women have an acting category. Doesn't that somebody's affirming? Yeah. So I mean, this.
I remember. Excuse me.
It was about Sky.
Gilbert. I know very well, and we were on a forum to discuss this. There were many forums
before they made their decision.
Yeah. And Sky said, "Why would you take anything away from women this year?" Because it was the Harvey Weinstein year, and I thought, I've never forgotten that. But I think this is just a bigger question about actors and acting as well. I know. I mean, do we say, are there gendered awards in directing or lighting? No. But we're on stage, and still there are not that many roles written for women that are sizable, and that is changing, but it's not changing fast enough. And who really stood to lose out were women of color, in fact, because even those roles were now. So it just feels like, and I, because I am an actor first and foremost, I feel I'm not Latinx, I'm not fake. But I just feel like, why don't we have actors' names? Why don't we have programs with actors' names that are bigger than everybody else? Sorry, everybody else is so important and it's all very democratic, but we are watching these people, and I want to know, who is that person? I've never seen them, and why I can't find it anywhere. So I don't want to do parkour on my soapboxes, but that's one of my. I just feel like people are like, oh, there's no star system here. Well, we don't have to have a star system, but it was really good to know who is David Ferry. And we might not know him, and we've never seen him before, but if we put his name up, the next time, oh, there's that guy, David Ferry, because I was heartbroken. A really cultured, very smart, beautiful woman who goes to a lot of theater said to me, oh my God, the poodle guy is in it. And she was talking about Tom Rooney from 15 Dogs, and he was now in the Chekhov at Crows, and she knew him as the poodle guy, and it broke my heart, because we should all be Tom Rooney should be a name on our, and so should Sky Gilbert. And so we are afraid to own our people and make something of them.
And you have talked about something, I'm interrupting again, but you've talked about something which segues into the final thing I want to say to you, which is that I want to ask about, because you wrote me about Gary Reinecke recently and the sadness of him dying, and I of course have written, but no one will publish what I've written because it was too crazy, but I wrote about Hiro Latoya, who's a great director who died recently. To have something, we must. And so, it's these, what I wanted to say was, how do we treat the elderly actors in our community, elderly theatre people? Is there a place for them, especially now? And it strikes me that, for instance, I know if I go to the Ontario Arts Council, forget it. It says in the mandate, we support young people and their work. Great, support the young people, but what about the old people? You know, you're putting us out to farm, you're putting us out to pasture, you're going to shoot us because we got a bad leg. And what the fuck is going on? So, I mean, I think it's important that somehow, and I realize that it has to do, I think, a bit with being Canadian, maybe, like you're sort of intimating, I don't know, Americans seem to, but I don't know, I think the whole age thing, whatever, I don't know what you think, I don't know what can we do, because I personally think that Hitler died because he brought on his own death. Yeah, pardon me?
From a broken heart.
You got from a broken heart. Like, I think that, I like to think I'm strong. I like to think I'm strong. Well, David, you and I are the same age. I like to think that we're strong and that we still go on even though we're old, but some people can't handle it.
Can I say something that goes back to what you brought up right at the beginning? Mm-hmm. Why do we do it? Why do we do it? Why are we the weirdos who do it?
Yeah.
And, you know, in ancient times, it was always the orphan or the gay kid or the little weirdo who got trained up as the shaman, got to do the masses, and then when the tribe had a weird thing, they do the little dance and like try to make everybody okay by the dance. But that is what we come from.
Absolutely.
And I think maybe we just have a different makeup. Maybe we feel things too profoundly. We which leads us all to...
And it drives us crazy.
It does, because it's really hard to live with in so many ways in our lives. But it is what we are, and I feel, just again, like the person who gets up on stage night after night after night, no matter who died, no matter what kid is sick, no matter who is sick, you know, whatever, that is a special kind of creature. And I think there should be more respect for us because, as you say, like, I'm already out to pasture, believe me, nobody wants me in the theater right now. That's okay, and I'm really grateful to be doing film and TV. I'm so grateful there's more roles for me there. Who knew? I didn't think that would happen. But I miss the theater. I miss it. But even so, you know, we have to make room for new people. But what about Hillary Latoya and Paul Bettis? And Ryan and so many, because we talk to young people about, and they don't know anything about it. Jackie Burroughs.
Jackie Burroughs. These are very important people who their whole spirit and their whole image and their whole work can inspire us.
And so also we're here because of them. Sorry,
absolutely, right here we ride on
all the theater that is going on in this theater, in the city. People don't realize It's here because of these people.
Well, I know we're a bunch of old people, but history is important. Is the problem if you forget history is that it repeats itself. That's what people say, and we don't want it in many cases to repeat itself because history has been not very pleasant at some times. So I have to say goodbye, but I'm telling you that I'm so grateful that you were here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allegra, and thank you, David. Thank you for this wonderful, inspiring interview. And I will see you all first Thursday of the month. And sorry, second Thursday at the Imperial Public Library, 7 p.m. Please do come. Good night, everybody.